At the top of IP14, copy this essential question down. The question is, how can failure lead to success? What we're talking about is the engineering design process. When you create, when you problem solve, when you create something to solve a problem. So in the very center of IP14, I want you to write this title, the engineering design process. The design process of engineering can be a little bit complicated because there are several steps, but they all kind of flow into each other. The first step in the engineering process is to first ask questions. If you're going to solve a problem, you have to know what the problem is to begin with. And then the second thing in asking questions is that you have to ask, what are my constraints? And here's a place where I want you to take some additional notes. You need to know that a constraint is like your limitations within a project. Like you have to think about, what are the materials that you need? What's the price of your project going to cost? Is there any limitations in the amount of people that you have to work with? For example, when we go back to the OK Go video, from the video they had things like, everything that they did had to time with the music. They needed to make sure that they did it within a certain amount of time, and they had to work with a lot of different people. And always within there, working with different people, you have challenges and putting heads together and all those kinds of things. And so constraints, what you need to know are the limitations that happen within your creative process in how you solve the problem. The second step in the engineering process is to start imagining, to start brainstorming ideas. And then once you brainstorm ideas, then you have to choose a direction. You have to choose which way you want to go. So as you imagine, you're choosing your direction and how you're going to create something to solve the problem that you have thought of. The third step is to plan. Once you've chosen a direction, then you have to start drawing. You have to start sketching things. You have to start gathering your needed materials and start thinking about, like, what do I now need to do to get started? What do I need to get started? Gathering your materials and actually planning your first, second, third step and what that looks like. The fourth step in the engineering process is then to start creating, to start following the plan that you did in step 3, and to start doing tests, to test it out, and then to improve on it. Once you start seeing how the creation starts playing out, then you start discussing with the people you're working with, what can we do to make it better? Then you repeat the steps to make changes. That's why this arrow right here is really, really, really important. This arrow in the engineering design process is important because you're always going back and you're asking questions. You're always then reimagining and going back to the drawing board and planning again, and then testing it out again, and then asking, what can we do to make it better? We repeat the steps to make changes. We go back and we ask more questions until the problem has been solved. Now, on OP14, you're now going to apply this engineering process to how you're going to engineer a paper airplane. So what you're going to do on OP14 is you're going to copy this title, and then you're going to copy these 4 questions. Make sure that you leave space in between the questions to have an answer for it. Number 1, what is the problem we're trying to solve? So you are going to start with step 1, asking the questions. Number 2, what are our constraints? You have to start talking with your group. What are our limitations? What do we have to do? What do we have to work with? How much time do we have? What are our materials? Those types of things. And then then question 3, you're going to start the imagining and planning part of the design process. What is our plan? What is our design? This is where you could actually use your computer to do some research about the best paper airplane, but you're not building anything yet. You're just researching, you're sketching, you're labeling. Make this plan very detailed, not just with a quick sketch, but a detailed sketch, and also labels and words to describe what your plan is. Then finally, I want you talking with your group about why you chose this design. What was the reason for this plan? So basically what you're doing today is steps 1, 2, and 3 of the engineering process as you're now applying it to your paper airplane.